Okay, so you're only supposed to do the odd numbers. And so let's start with the first one. So the easiest way to do this, well, you already have the letters, the points. So this is point Q, H, and J. So let me write point Q. No, let me write it somewhere else. Let me write it here. Point Q, point H. No, we'll do alphabetically. Point J, point H, point Q. Point J is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So point Q is negative 5. And negative 3. Point H is at negative 3, negative 5. Oh my god. Let me write this again. I apologize. Point J is at negative 5, comma, negative 3. Point H is at negative 3, comma, negative 5. And point Q, it's at 0, negative 1. So we have to figure out what J prime is, H prime, and Q prime. So if it's a 180 degree rotation, okay, first of all, it's about the origin, so they're rotating around this guy right here. Point J, it's going to go, if it's a 180 degree rotation, remember, every 90 degree is one quadrant. So point J is going to go from here, travel one quadrant, and lands on that quadrant. So it travels 2 quadrants over. Doesn't matter if it's clockwise or counterclockwise in this scenario because it's at 180 degrees. So it doesn't matter which way you go, you still land in quadrant 1. So point J, and if you remember that little trick we did in class, or you can remember the rule, when it's a 180 degree rotation, right, negative 5 and negative 3 switches position, so negative 5, so let's not worry about the sign. So 5 and 3 becomes 3 and 5, and then becomes 5 and 3, right? You switch the number once, switch the number twice, and point J prime will be 5 and 3, but in quadrant 1, everybody's positive, so you leave it as that. Point H is negative 3 and negative 5. It still is going to be negative 3 and 5, but because it lands on quadrant 1, everybody's positive. Point Q is going to go from this axis, from the y-axis, this axis, to the x-axis over here. It's going to be over here. And in that, so again, it's going to switch, sorry, not this axis, it's going to be on this axis, on the y-axis, but on top. So it's going to go from this axis to this axis, and then to this axis. And point Q is going to be 0, comma, positive 1. So let's plot the numbers. 5 and 3, point J, 5 and 3, J prime. Point H is 3 and 5, H prime, sorry. And point Q, 0, 1, which is right here. If you connect the dots, you'll see the rotation 180 degrees, which is in the opposite direction. So that's pretty much it. Let's go to 3. It's a 90 degree rotation clockwise about the origin, so they tell you where it's rotating, right? About the origin. So let's write the points B. Oh, let's just write B, F, H, and M. Point B is negative 5, comma 1. Point F is negative 1, comma 3. Point H is -1, comma, -2. And point M is going to be -4, comma, -2. 90-degree rotation clockwise, so we're going this way. And if it's a 90-degree rotation, every point moves over one quadrant. So point F is in quadrant 2, so let me write quadrant 2 over here. Point F is going to go from quadrant 2 to quadrant 1. Okay, so point B is also in quadrant 2, and that's going to land in quadrant 1, but points M and H are going to go from quadrant 3 to quadrant 2. Okay, so a little bit different. So point B prime, F prime, H prime, and M prime. So point B prime. So let's start with point B. Point B, when you shift over one quadrant counterclockwise, you switch positions, so -5 and -1. So just focus on the number, it becomes 1 and 5. And in quadrant 1, everybody's positive, so it becomes 1 and 5. Point F, which is -1 and 3, will become 3 and 1. And in quadrant 1, everyone's positive, so it stays as 3 and 1. Point H is in quadrant 3. We'll go to quadrant 2, so we're going to switch the positions once. And in quadrant 2, the x-coordinate is negative. And then point M, which is -4 and -2, becomes 2 and 4. But the 2 is negative because in quadrant 2, the x-coordinate is negative and the y-coordinate is positive. So let's plot these. 1 and 5 is here. And that's point B prime. F prime is 3 and 1. 3 and 1. And that's F prime. H prime is -2 and 1. -2 and 1. Which is right here. And M prime is -2, -4, -2 and 4, which is right here. Now let me change colors. And if you connect the dots, it's the same shape, exactly the same shape, same size, same everything, but rotated. So if you think about it, I mean, I hope you can imagine this shape here and just turn it, right? So notice that point F is over here, point H went from here to here, point B is over here and shifted all the way to here, and point M moved one quadrant over, so from quadrant 3 to quadrant 2. So that's the final shape. We are rotating this clockwise, so again about the origin, so around the origin right here, and it's going to go this way. So all the points, because it's a 9-degree rotation, wherever they are, they're going to shift over one quadrant clockwise. So point U, let's start with U. 1 and -2. 1, -2. So that's right here. Point W is 0 and 2. Let me change color again. This is W. Point K is 3 and 2. And point G is 3 and -3. Right, so if we connect it, quadrilateral. Right, and we're going to move, so we're going to rotate this shape 9 degrees clockwise. So everybody's going to move over one quadrant that way. So U and G are going to be over here. K is going to go from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2. And W is going to go from the y-axis here to this x-axis here, around here. Okay, so U is 1, -2. W is 0, 2. K is 3 and 2. And G is 3 and -3. So if you shift it, if you rotate it 9 degrees, U prime, so all you gotta do is think about U. U prime is going to go from quadrant 4, quadrant 3, right? So you're just going to go 1 over. So switch the numbers once, and in quadrant 3, everybody's negative, and then you attach the sign. W is going to go from this axis, the y-axis here, to the x-axis. So switch the positions, and it just becomes 2 and 0. Point K prime is going to go from quadrant 1 to quadrant 4. So in switch the positions once, it becomes 2 and 3, but in quadrant 4, the y-coordinate is negative. And then G is going to go from quadrant 4, right here, to quadrant 3. And it's the same number, 3 and 3, but in quadrant 4, everybody's negative. So those are my final locations. So let's plot these. -2, -1, -2, -1. So this is point U. Point W is over here, 2 and 0. Right, W prime, U prime. Point K is 2 and -3. K prime, sorry. And point G is -3 and 3. -3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and that's called G prime. Connect the dots, and you should have the same shape again, which I don't have. Oh, where did I make a mistake? -2 and 1, 2 and 0. K is 2. No, it's correct. So I just drew the line incorrectly. So this is like this, and like that. Okay. Same shape, just rotated 90 degrees. Okay. 7. When it's a rotation of 180 degrees, I'll just write it over here. Okay. So point Z, if you imagine it, is in quadrant 4, right? Sorry, quadrant 3. It's 180 degrees, it's going to go to quadrant 1. So let me just draw this. Point Z right now is over here. Z prime is going to be over here. So switch the numbers. And Z prime, which is in quadrant 1, and in quadrant 1 everybody's positive, so it becomes 5 and 1. Point K sorry. Point Z prime, you actually leave the numbers the way it is. And then in quadrant 1 everybody's positive. Point K prime, so imagine where it is. K prime is -1, 0, it's right here. Right, after 190 degrees, it's going to go from this axis to this axis, and then this axis again. And it's just going to be 1 and 0. Point C prime, so imagine where C prime is. Sorry, C is. C is over here in quadrant 1, and it's going to land in quadrant 3. And in quadrant 3, everybody's negative. And then N prime is 3 and -2. 3 and -2 means that it's somewhere over here in quadrant 4. 3 and -2. So here's where N is. So N, after 180 degree rotation, is going to go over 2 quadrants. So it's going to jump 1 quadrant. And N prime is going to land over here. So N prime is going to be the same numbers in the same positions, but the X is going to be negative and the Y is going to be positive. That's the final answer. Rotation of 90 degrees clockwise. So let's start with that. So S is 1 and -4. 1 and -4 is right here. Right? So if it's going to go clockwise, it's going to go in this direction. And S is going to go, remember, 90-degree rotation means it just goes over 1 quadrant. So S prime is going to be over here. So S prime is going to be the same two numbers, but change the order. And notice that in quadrant 3, both numbers should be positive. W is 1 and 0, and then W prime. So where's 1 and 0? 1 and 0 is right here. 1 and 0. It's going to go from this x-axis to this y-axis. So it's going to go from here to here. And over here, the coordinate is 0 and negative 1. J prime. Where is J first of all? J is 3 and negative 4. 3 and negative 4. J is currently in quadrant 4. It's going to go 1 over, and J prime is going to land in quadrant 3. And in quadrant 3, everybody's negative. So switch the numbers, and then make sure both of them are negative. And that's the answer to that. 11, they're just asking you what has been done. And in 11, first of all, pick a point. Focus on one point. Let's focus on this guy, n and n prime. So what happened? Well, first of all, it rotated this way, right? Because this is the original, and this is the rotated image. So first of all, it went clockwise. And notice that n went from quadrant 3 to quadrant 1, so it shifted over one quadrant, so it's a 90-degree rotation. So clockwise, 90 degrees, and everybody also followed the same rule. Everybody went clockwise, 90 degrees. Okay, so it's the same thing for everyone. Okay? And the last question. Well, pick a point. I would pick point T because that's probably the easiest one. So this is the original one, and this is the rotated image, right? So this triangle here is the original, and this one is the rotated image. Same triangle, same everything, except that's in a new location. So point T was in quadrant 1, so think where it is. And where's T prime? T prime is in quadrant 3. So you jumped from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2 to quadrant 3. So point T traveled 2 quadrants. So when it traveled 2 quadrants, that means it's a 180-degree rotation. And honestly, it doesn't matter if it's clockwise or counterclockwise because you still end up in the same place. So 180-degree rotation is just fine. Okay? And that's it.